offer and to deliver this message that is in honor of a past president. The lecture is titled the Besant Lecture after Annie Besant, who for us is revered and celebrated for her spiritual insight, but also for her uncompromising insistence on the application of spiritual principles to social issues. Annie Besant was a person who was of Irish and English descent, but she made her home here in India to the point that she regarded herself and others called her a daughter of India. She's a person who this lecture was titled for. His Excellency will be the most recent in a long line of notable people to speak to us from a very particular point of view. People in the fields of politics, social change. We have had people in urban design and planning, diplomats, Indira Gandhi, the Dalai Lama have graced the stage for this occasion and have spoken out about many, many things of importance. The Theosophical Society is not a political body of any sort, but historically its members have involved themselves and poured their energies into social causes wherever they find themselves around the world. In fact, in the fight for India's independence, it was at this place that the Indian National Congress, before it became a political party, was conceived. The first members of the organization were all theosophists. Its first president was a man named A.O. Hume, who was also a member of the Theosophical Society. So there has been a deep involvement in the importance of this nation where the Theosophical Society finds its headquarters. Annie Besant herself, in addition to being the president of the society, was an activist on behalf of the independence from the British Raj of the Indian nation. She was the person who agitated and organized for India's independence through her speeches given all across the Indian nation and through the two newspapers that she operated specifically to direct attention to the need and the importance of India's independence. She was interred for her activities. She was the first person. Many were much too timid to make the demand of the British Raj for home rule for this nation. She made that demand, and all around the Indian subcontinent, home rule leagues sprang up wherever you look. She became a distinct thorn in the side, a problem for the British Raj, and as such she was interred. She was forced to stay and out of touch with the movement, but it only lasted a very brief while, because all around India, people rose up to demand her release, which then occurred, and which then led to her being the first woman president of the Indian National Congress. And all of the work that she did was based on a view that spiritual principles can be and must be applied in daily life situations. We're very fortunate to have the governor here to speak. I think he's a person that is cut from the same sort of cloth of activism and high thought. In the brief time that met with him in order to invite him here, there were a number of pearls of wisdom that dropped during that conversation. Share one with you because it was one that was of some importance to me. Obviously, the man is in a position that there are constant demands being made for his attention, for his time. My question was about the stress related to such a position. And his answer was illuminating. Because what he had to say was this, said people will try to give you stress, but you have to take it. And he's not a person that takes it very easily. I was impressed with that. So now I would like for our Vice President to introduce the Governor, His Excellency.
Honorable Governor of Tamil Nadu, Thiru R.N. Ravi, President, International Theosophical Society, Tim Boyd, distinguished delegates, brothers and sisters. We are privileged to have with us today for Besant lecture, Honorable Governor of Tamil Nadu, Thiru R.N. Ravi. I feel honored to introduce a person who combines in himself the rare qualities of head and heart. Our chief guest, Thiru Ravi, belongs to Patna in Bihar and possesses the degree of MSc in physics. He joined the Indian Police Service in 1976 and was allotted Kerala cadre. He rose in his career to the peak. His contributions while in the CBI and Intelligence Bureau are remarkable and milestone events. He has played crucial roles in conflict resolutions in areas affected by ethnic insurgencies and brought several armed rebel groups to peace. He was the architect of India's international cooperation in counter-terrorism and intelligence sharing. After retirement from government service in 2012, he contributed regular columns in national dailies. It is important to mention that while in the Intelligence Bureau, Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India, he served in the theatres of insurgencies and violence in Jammu and Kashmir, the Northeast and Maoist-infected regions. He has specialized in the dynamics of human migration in South Africa. It is relevant to reiterate that he was, after retirement, appointed as the emissary of the Prime Minister's office to start the Naga peace process in 2014. This was seen as a recognition of his knowledge of the region whose boundaries stretched from Bhutan, Tibet and Myanmar to Bangladesh. It is also my privilege to mention that in 2018, he served as Deputy National Security Advisor. Honorable Governor Thiru Ravi was thereafter appointed Governor of Nagaland, which earned him the rare distinction of being the first incumbent constitutional head of a state to double up as a peace interlocutor in the country. In view of his stellar performance as the Governor of Nagaland, the Honorable President of India was again pleased to appoint him as Governor of Tamil Nadu. It is our good fortune to have such an iconic person as Thiru R.N. Ravi, who would be speaking for Besant lecture on Theosophic Governance, Sustainable Future for the Mankind. I humbly request him to address the audience. Honorable Governor, please.
Thiru, Team Boys, International President, Theosophical Society, Dr. Deepa Pardi, International Vice President, Theosophical Society, distinguished guests, participants, invitees from across the world, all members of the Theosophical Society, ladies and gentlemen, I extend my warmest greetings and best wishes to all of you for the new year 2025. I welcome on behalf of the people of Tamil Nadu, all of you, those who have come from outside to this beautiful city of Chennai at the most beautiful time in terms of season, and also most beautiful in its cultural expression when the Margadi month is on. I would urge those who have come from outside to visit some of these cultural programs. There are plenty of them. Have a feel of this place. I thank Tim for inviting me, giving me this opportunity. When he came, I was deeply impressed by his simplicity, by his openness, so much so that when he offered this, without thinking I said yes, but after he left, and when I saw the long line of stellar, illustrious people, those who have held this podium, I wondered if I would be able to fit the bill. Thank you, Tim, for this honor given to me. I would like to start with a caveat. And the caveat is that I am nowhere near an accomplished theosophist. I have not been initiated formally into theosophy, and so I am limited by my experience, by my knowledge. My understanding of theosophy is limited to what I read as a school student when I read a brief biography of Annie Besant. Annie Besant had kindled the sense of nationalism in our people. She had awakened an urge for freedom, she dedicated her life for the well-being of the people of this country. And I also understood that she believed in the indivisibility of soul and universal brotherhood. Having been born in a civilizational milieu and brought up on the civilizational ethos from my childhood that says, Mam Atma Sarva Bhutatma, my soul is the soul of every being. Sarva Bhutesu Ekainyam, all the beings are one and the same. And the being is not just humans, animals, plants. Everyday prayer that I have been singing in my house from my childhood, it says, Sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu ma kashit dukha bhag bhave. It means, let all beings be happy, all beings be happy. Let all beings be free of disease. Let everyone see goodness in others. And let not suffering of any kind afflict any being. Now with this kind of upbringing, even though I have not been formally initiated in this movement, Theosophy, but I feel a spiritual kinship. And that gives me the courage to stand before you. I would like to pay my deepest and most profound homage to the pioneers of this movement. S.P. Blavatsky and H.S.S. Scott and others. Those, the pioneers who seeded the idea of a movement nearly 150 years ago. They did it at a time when the humanity was in a dire situation. Some powers in Europe, with the powers of a steam engine and gunpowder, they had conquered the world. People were oppressed, suppressed, and exploited. They had fabricated a theory of racial inequality. When in 1853, preceding this birth of this movement, de Gobineau came up with this theory of inequality of races, that in this world there are three races, white, yellow, and black, and white are the superior. They started measuring the people, the colonized people, their skull, the length and breadth, and trying to marking where do they stand in the rank of inferiority. It provided the intellectual and so-called pseudo-scientific basis for or rationalization for colonization, which was bluntly expressed much later in the context of the colonized people and their suffering by Winston Churchill when he said, "Dog in the manger." He said, referring to the people of colonized countries, as dog laying in the manger for long. And he's quoting his words that a dog in the manger does not have the final right to the manger simply because he has been laying there for long. It belongs to the superior races. Those were the context. Not only that, the people with theological arrogance, believing that they and they alone possess the light, they went on coercing, suppressing the people, forcing them to accept the light that they had brought in the process inflicting unspeakable miseries. In all this such a dire situation, the pioneers took a bold decision. What they did was a testimony to the resilience of human spirit. Human spirit might be small, might be puny, but it is inextinguishable. It is inexhaustible. Whatever be the suppression, it lives, it survives, and it encourages others. Much later, after the Second World War, when the world had witnessed the most devastating miseries inflicted upon the people, where millions and millions had perished in the war, humans had witnessed the destructive power, unimaginable destructive power, the nuclear power in the hands of human beings, and the kind of devastation it had unleashed. And when the world was sandwiched between two nuclear superpowers, each of them saber rattling all the time, and the rest of the world was sandwiched, helplessly and helplessly watching, and perhaps praying to avoid the doomsday. Because the doomsday narrative had become the mainstream narrative. In that background, I'm reminded to recall the writing of William Faulkner, the Literature Nobel laureate, when he said, and I quote, I believe that when the last ding-dong of doom has clanged and faded from the last worthless rock, in the last red and dying evening, even then there will still be one more sound, that of man's puny, inexhaustible voice talking. Not simply because man among the creatures alone has the inexhaustible voice, but because man has a soul, a spirit which is capable of compassion, sacrifice, and endurance. Unquote. This resilience of the human spirit, and this is what this society, its founders, and those who have been carrying it forward, they represent, howsoever small they might be in number. Friends, how is the situation today? Today, we know that we are living in a world which is highly volatile, unstable equilibrium. At the time when the international institutions were created to make a safer world, to make a world which would be free from weapons of mass destruction, a world which would be equitable, free from poverty and disease. Where are we today? Today, nuclear weapons have multiplied many times, many-fold. And they are in far many more hands than it was before. Each one of them having enough a stockpile to destroy this world many times over. Look at the inequalities, deprivation, the hunger, the starvation we have in this world. A large segment of humanity is malnourished, is hungry. Look at the climate. Mother Earth is heating up due to reckless exploitation of its resources, its assets, which they call it resources. With the anthropocentric view of life that humans are the Lord and Master of the creation, and the whole creation is meant for their enjoyment. In the race for enjoyment, they have devastated the climate, the environment, and now elements are angry. They are visiting, they are showing their wrath time to time. These are curtain raisers. If you look at the technologies, now the latest advancement in technology, they are trying or they are asserting to deny the very existence of human agency. They say machine will replace the humans not for doing the work, but even as humans themselves. They will be thinking, they will have consciousness, they will be super intelligent, far more efficient. The very definition of human being, the meaning of human being, is being questioned, and questioned with arrogance, so-called scientific arrogance. This advancement are further increasing the asymmetry in wealth and power. This unstable world, where is it heading? Is it sustainable? I don't think so. Then, what is the way forward? At individual level, there have been people who have been pursuing the truth, the realization that we are all part of the larger whole. We are one and the same. We are like leaves, million leaves on a tree. Each leaf looks different, but out of the tree it has no existence. We are all integrally one. This realization is being pursued at the individual level. This incremental work in progress of realization of truth, is it enough? Is it going to save the world from the looming disaster? I think it has to be expanded. It has to be expanded. The spirit of theosophy has to be expanded from individual to the collectives. And when I say collectives could be at the social level, at the family level, society level, or at the governance level. Governance level, because it is more impactful. Can governance be carried on with the spirit of theosophy? In our country, India, we have been conducting an experiment for the last 1 decade to bring that spirit in governance. And I would like to explain how it is being implemented. You know, governance by and large across the world has been following a model which had its intellectual and theoretical basis in what Jeremy Bentham had said, greatest good for the greatest number. The greatest good for the greatest number, the model of governance, it does not cater for all. There are people, there are segments who are left out. We have shifted, we are trying to shift from that model to all-inclusive governance. Don't leave anyone. Don't leave anyone how? Let me explain. Every citizen of this country must have access to the basic ingredients that would qualify that person to be called human. Food, health, education, home, access to drinking water, potable drinking water, electricity in every home, cooking gas in every home, toilet in every home. Basics. Without any discrimination, every citizen must have all these basic ingredients. And this, our country has been able to achieve. Till about a decade ago, we had the dubious distinction of a country with almost 60% people going for open defecation. Many people had taken it as a cultural issue. But open defecation is not only linked with dignity and hygiene, but also with safety and security. Because the women folk had to wait till the sun downs to go out, and every time there was a threat lurking, safety. Within less than half decade, this country is now open defecation free. We have been able to ensure that through the model of governance, that all-inclusive governance, every home, every house must have a toilet. Every home must have electricity, almost saturation level. Every home must have potable drinking water. Every home must have cooking gas. The basics. Next, in our earlier model of development, model of governance, there were areas, even geographic areas, where people were left out. We had a hugely unequal situation. So much so that even in states which were relatively advanced, there were large pockets of deprivation. In our own state, which is one among the relatively advanced states of this country, we had several pockets of deprivation, of poverty, malnutrition. So, at the country level, to make this inclusive, that no one should be left out, identified all those districts which were relatively behind at different level, different degrees of backwardness. We identified nearly 120 districts. And in about a decade time, I am happy to share with you that many of them have come at par. Most of them have come at par with special measures taken with their advanced districts in that state, and some of them have even overtaken them. But that's not enough. We go down to the granular level, because district alone is a very large entity. There within the district we have small areas, blocks and panchayats, where you have deprivation, where you have poverty. Now we have from aspirational district to aspirational blocks, aspirational panchayats. All-inclusive model of governance. From greatest good to the greatest number to all-inclusive. This is not all. In our competitive electoral politics, smaller groups, smaller numbers are left out. For example, in my country, in our country, we have some tribal communities. We have a large tribal community, but among them, there is a set of people who are called particularly vulnerable tribal groups. They're just about less than 4 million, scattered all over this huge country. Now imagine a country of 1400 million, 3 to 4 million is dispensable in terms of electoral politics. But no, this is not. And all-inclusive governance means they also must be included. And so, special programs for targeted to pull them up. A few months back, I was in Javadu Hills. Javadu Hills is home in this state. Is a home to some such particularly vulnerable tribal groups who are way behind. And I had the fortune to be part of the drive over a couple of days to enable them, each one of them, each household, to have the basic documents that would enable them to have the benefits and to be at par with others, like opening the bank accounts, having the Ayushman Bharat card for the health insurance, tribal identity cards, having Aadhars so that direct benefit could be transferred to them without middleman eating away the money. This creation of the digital public infrastructure and the trinity of JAM, Jan-Dhan, Aadhaar and Mobile has revolutionized the model of governance in this country, all-inclusive model of governance. When it comes to development, mostly we have been following across the world the GDP-centric model of development. Which countries? The country is developed if it is GDP is so many trillions. But we know that a very high GDP, the countries with very, very high GDP also have people who are homeless, people who have no access to medical care. We know their positions. It is not a fair and a humane way of development. So from the GDP-centric development to human-centric development. Human-centric development. Don't measure the GDP. Don't go by that. See whether every individual, every human being is rising to prosperity. And for that, taking measures to ensure that instead of the large industries should come, but large industries coming, it also inevitably it leads to inequality, to unequal distribution of wealth, greater thrust on MSME, micro, small and medium. And how do you do that? By making the people from the state-centric drive to people-centric drive. It creates a situation whereby the people, the individuals in the society becomes able to show his or her enterprise and prosper. Let me illustrate a case of my own state, Tamil Nadu. In our state, more than 1,50,00,000 people, more than 15 million people have taken mudra loan. That means collateral-free bank loan up to 10 lakhs rupees. They don't have to bother about collateral security because everyone doesn't have. The poor people don't have something to offer to the banks. Collateral-free. I have visited the districts, the remote areas, the villages. The women folk have taken a small amount, 1,50,00,000. They have taken loan, set up a tea shop, tea snacks selling. That family is earning with dignity. Someone has bought some stitching, tailoring machines, tailoring clothes, selling it, earning with dignity. Someone buys some milking cattle, cows, part of the dairy movement, improvement. This micro revolution, revolution at the micro level. It is these which leads to the fair and equitable distribution of wealth, ensuring the people who have been left far behind to live with dignity. And it is this class of people, the involvement of the large number of our people, those who are out, that today India is the fastest growing large economy in the world. The model of governance, the model of development, human-centric development, not. Again, not consumption-driven economy. Reckless consumption, we know it has destroyed this. Today, the situation we have reached to a stage where you buy a gadget, I would not like to name them. By the next year, the next model comes and there is no scope for you to get it repaired. You have to throw it. Is it sustainable? It is not. Reckless consumption-driven economy or development is not sustainable. It is creating crisis. The development model has to be sustainable. Economy has to be circular. You can't be producing waste. Friends, this model of economy and growth, where we don't rely on reckless consumption, but rather in a sustainable consumption through, in which production is through the enterprise of the people. You know, in COVID-19, when the COVID has struck the whole world, whole bunch of economists within the country and outside, they all advise the government, pump money, print notes and distribute, raise the consumptions. People, let the people start consuming, production will start and economy will boom. No, we didn't agree to that. We don't believe in consumption, reckless consumption-driven economy because this is not sustainable. We did not. Perhaps this country, India, was the only country which has stood and did not pump unnecessary money by printing notes to boost consumption. Instead, we created the infrastructure and enabled the people through various facilities by which they could have access to capital and show the enterprise. And it is because of that that India is the fastest growing large economy in the world today, whereas those consumption-driven economies, they struggled for long to come out of recession, causing so much miseries to the people. This human-centric governance, sustainable consumption, driven economy, circular economy, avoiding the waste, and adopting a lifestyle which is sustainable. Sustainable lifestyle. Sustainable lifestyle which is necessary for a sustainable environment. All these you will see in yourself when I am speaking. This is all inspired by the spirit of theosophy, the well-being of the people, well-being of the last man. Not only that, we know that every human being, we all have element of goodness, we all have element which is not good, which is bad. The good and bad, the evil and the good, it all resides in our heart. How to unleash the goodness, the positive spirit in the people? We have to collectively build it. We have to collectively ensure that the people, the positive force in the people is unleashed and you harness that. When it comes to the positive force, and all of us, we are the mix of the two. Let me tell you a folk tale. A folk tale in some variations I have heard among the tribal indigenous people of my own country in the Northeast. But what I read, which was more precise, more expressive, was a folk tale of Cherokee tribes, indigenous people of the United States of America. Among the Cherokees, there is a folk tale that the tribal chief's granddaughter, she had disturbed sleep for a couple of nights. She was not able to sleep because whenever she slept, she found two wolves growling, howling, with bare fangs, fighting, bleeding each other. She went and asked her mom, "Why is it that I am not able to sleep? It is so nightmarish." Her mom said, "Go and ask your grandpa, the wise old man. He would give you the answer." She went and asked the grandpa, I am not able to sleep because every night for last couple of nights, I am not able to sleep because in the sleep I see this fight. What is this? And the wise old man said, "These two wolves are in each one of us, the good and the bad, and they are in constant battle." And then she asked, the little girl asked, "But who will win?" And then the wise old man said, "The one you feed. If you feed the good one will win. If you feed the bad one will prevail." That's the story. It is all of us, within all of us. So the question is how? How to build, how to raise the feed, the goodness in every heart. For that also, the model of governance that we are following is involve the people, encourage the goodness in every aspect. Take the case, everyone who does something good, if the person does something good to others, there is a sense of satisfaction. We launched a campaign which is ongoing to eradicate TB, tuberculosis, from this country. But we didn't keep it as only a government drive. We said a patient of tuberculosis also needs nutrition and all, which needs sustained nutrition because the treatment lasts for over a year. The government can give the medicine. What about nutrition? Sustained nutrition. Can people participate? So it was opened. Let people volunteer and adopt patients. And millions of people became and Nikshay Mitra, that is the friends of those people, and they are the ones who are sustaining it. This positive force. When cooking gas issue came and there was subsidy, it was said, people, if you can afford to give away your subsidy for the good of somebody else, because if you give up, somebody else, the needy would get it. Millions of people gave up their subsidy. Millions. And that helped millions other homes where there was no cooking gas to provide. This goodness, by involving the people. Until recently, till about a decade, in every recognition of the government, we had various awards, Padma Awards, Padma Shri, Padma Bhushan, Padma Vibhushan. It used to be people who were celebrated. No longer. It is the bare feet, women in the remote area of the forest, planting the trees, taking care of the trees. The man, poor guy, who has been disposing the unclaimed bodies, doing the final rites. People, there are numerous, countless unsung heroes in our society. We need to appreciate. In fact, when I came, I launched this scheme here. Annual award for doing excellent social service, individual and entities, both category. Social service and environment protection. I was amazed to see the large number of people, those who have been doing it silently. There is so much positive force. Build up. Recognize, appreciate, encourage. Let them be celebrated. It encourages others. Build this. Unleash the latent positive energy in the people and harness it. Prosperity comes. Happiness comes. Even in our international relations, we pursue a policy which is imbued with the policy, or rather the spirit, not policy, but spirit of theosophy. Our tagline is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The world is a family. One world, one earth, one family, one future. One earth, one family, one future. That is the tagline, that is the philosophy that governs India's foreign relations. And that we have been trying to walk the talk. Take the case of COVID. When the COVID has struck, and nobody knew when this unknown beast would go, when some countries, advanced countries, made the vaccines, vaccine nationalism began. Many of them they looked at it as an opportunity to make money, raising the price. They started hoarding vaccines more than they needed. But this country, when our scientists, made the vaccines, even before we had reached the saturation, even before our people were all vaccinated, we have started sharing the vaccine with the rest of the world, over 150 countries of the world, because we believe that the world is a family. Last year, when we had G20 presidency, we said, is it inclusive? How could a large African continent be out of it? We made it inclusive. African Union became part of it. World has to be inclusive, equitable. Only then it will be sustainable. Even in conflict. Earlier, we used to say we are non-aligned. When the two countries are fighting, we'll say, no, we are not with you, we are not with you. Now, indifference, aloofness is not a response, a desired response, a desirable response. We cannot. We are all integrally connected. If there is a distress somewhere, we cannot say that, no, I have nothing to do with you. Today we say, we have our policies, resolute rejection of violence as a means of conflict resolution. We don't agree at all. And we are equally disposed to all the parties, telling them firmly, looking into their eyes, no, what you are doing is wrong, rather than turning our face away as if the problem doesn't exist. We tell them, no, this is not. What you are doing is not right. And the result is the country is also building a trust in this country that yes, you can perhaps play a role to bring the peace. What I'm all trying to say is imbuing the governance with the spirit of theosophy is the need of the hour. If this world has to survive, and it must survive, if the human spirit, which is inexhaustible, if it has to assert, we have to take this beyond the individual to the collectives. And the experiment that we have begun in this country, a country which hosts about 20% of the world population, 1/5 of the world population, if this experiment succeeds, and so far it has been succeeding, perhaps it will be for the others to emulate, to follow. We have provided the alternative, where with due regard and due respect to the dignity of human spirit, we are working towards all-inclusive, equitable form of governance and society. That is what I meant when I suggested that theosophic governance is the future of the mankind. That's the way that there will be a sustainable world, where the climate will be preserved. Climate will know the environment, the nature will no longer be viewed as a resource for us to exploit it. But we are integrally connected, harmoniously, in balance, where we don't leave anyone left out because that person is poor or weak. Compassion is what makes us human. And this compassion has to reflect in the actions of the collectives. Every individual may not be able to achieve that or reach the level of evolution in the march of consciousness. But collectively we can create that environment where goodness prevails, where the people are not condemned to live a subhuman life. They are able to live with dignity, where they are able to assert themselves, the goodness in them, with pride. That is our future, sustainable future. Friends, thank you very much for patient listening. Thank you once again, Tim, for giving me this honor. Thank you very much.
Now we have come to the end of a very inspiring, enlightening, and meaningful, pleasant event. I consider it my privilege and pleasure to propose words of thanks I consider it my privilege and pleasure to propose words of thanks to the chief guest on behalf of all the delegates of this 149th International Theosophical Convention. I convey our heartiest thanks and deep gratitude to the Honorable Governor of Tamil Nadu, Thiru R.N. Ravi, for his erudite lecture. What he said is practical theosophy, but it seems he knows much more than we know. He is, as it is evident from his speech, he has profound knowledge of theosophy, spirituality, philosophy, politics, even of Sanskrit. He is a man of wisdom, widely read, and has intellectual sharpness. His scholarly speech on theosophic governance, sustainable future for mankind, will leave behind indelible memories in all our minds. We are extremely happy and grateful to him for sparing some time despite his busy schedule. I would also like to convey our sincere thanks to International President Tim Boyd for his guidance. He has always been an inspiration for all theosophists as he tirelessly moves around the world explaining the tenets of theosophy. Our thanks are also due to the distinguished delegates, brothers and sisters, for their kind presence. Now I would request President Tim to present some books on theosophy authored by Annie Besant as a token of remembrance to the Honorable Governor of Tamil Nadu. Thank you. Thank you all.
Please rise for the national anthem. Janagana mana adhinayak jaya he Bharat bhagya vidata Punjab Sindh Gujarat Maratha Dravida Utkal Banga Vindhya Himachal Yamuna Ganga Uchchal Jaladhi Taranga तव शुभ नामे जाहे तव शुभ आशीष माहे गाहे तव जय गाता जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विदाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 जय